I'd like to welcome you today and just a word of encouragement that I'd like to leave with you today. Letty B. Cowman wrote one of the greatest devotionals ever written, and it's called Streams in the Desert. Streams in the Desert was one of those kinds of devotionals. And if you don't know what a devotional is, it's basically a daily encouragement that uses the scriptures to help followers of Christ, walk the walk. And so she would use a scripture or story or something that happened to them of how God, helped them through the problem and through the struggle. And she would just really encourage people. So her devotional came from a point of view of having traveled the world. Her and her husband were missionaries and just all the ups and downs that they went through. And she would often use her personal struggles to talk about life. And in this case, she uses this mundane, simple story of tending her own garden. Now, think about yourself this way. We're going through this season right now and we're getting through it by the grace of God. But maybe you're watching this and you feel like you have withered under this season. You feel lesser. You feel kind of undone by this season. You feel like maybe your spiritual head has been bowed in a sense, and that there's nothing to look forward to, and that you wonder, will I ever resurrect again, so to speak? Will I ever come back, to my strength, to my passions, to the things that are worth living in life? And this is what this is about today. Just for the next few minutes, I want to share this with you. But she tells a story of how that the day had closed while she was, finishing her garden work. And she says, the plants in my garden were beaten down before the pelting storm. So this big storm came and imagine the plants kind of getting beat down by the water and the wind. She says, I saw one flower that I had admired for its beauty and loved for its fragrance. And it was exposed to the pitiless storm. So this storm had no mercy on the flower, right? And maybe you feel like that in this season. The flower fell and shut up its petals and dropped its head. And I saw that all its glory was gone. I must wait till next year, she said to herself, before I see that beautiful thing again. And just to stop in the middle of the story, think about it this way. Maybe you're feeling that same way right now, that in a sense, your petals have closed and your head is bowed and you're wondering, will I have to wait till next year to see anything great or anything exciting or anything worth living for? And the answer is absolutely not. I mean, we serve a big God. So how do we bloom again? Maybe that's a question we can ask it that way. How do we bloom again? Because we've been kind of hidden in a coal mine, in a sense, And the way she puts it in her story is this way: the weak must come into contact with the strong. And there is a scripture in the words of Paul in 2 Corinthians 12:9, where he says, power is made perfect in weakness. And imagine if you're a flower and the storm comes, you're weak, you're vulnerable, you're feeble. In fact, what else in life could be more delicate, more fragile than a flower, more feeble against the raging storms? So there's a scripture that says, power is made perfect in weakness. Power is made perfect in weakness. And think about your life that way, that when something weak, which is you, comes into contact with something strong, that's when God begins to move. And she says this in the rest of her story, which I'll read right now. But let me just put it to you this way. She said, the night passed and morning came. The sun shone again, and the morning brought strength to the flower. The light looked at it, and the flower looked up at the light, and it held up its head again, and it opened its petals, and it regained its glory, and it seemed fairer than before. I wonder how it took place, she says, and this is her idea here that I'm sharing today. This feeble thing coming into contact with the strong thing and gaining strength. Think of how beautiful that story is. That something weak, like Paul said, right? His strength is made perfect in my weakness, right? Power is made perfect in weakness. And think of his story and how that he was talking about his own life, that the only time he experienced the strength of God is when he was weak. There's a beautiful hymn that goes with this. Just a closer walk with thee. I am weak, but thou art strong. Jesus, keep me from all wrong. I'll be satisfied as long as I walk. Let me walk close to thee. So I'm weak, but he's strong. Maybe I feel feeble in this season, but he is strong. And there's a promise found in the book of Hosea that goes something like this. It says, they shall again live beneath my shadow. They shall flourish as a garden. They shall blossom like the vine. Their fragrance shall be like the wine of Lebanon. And that's a promise of God to his people who were molting under the difficult conditions of their choices. They had made terrible choices, and God was just allowing them to live out the consequences of their choices. And so they were kind of like disintegrating under these choices. And God says, but you know what? There's a promise. You're going through this, but I love you and you're going to get through it. And so let's grab onto that promise for ourselves that maybe God is telling us today. He's telling us, I want you to believe again. I want you to trust me again. I want you to know that your head that may have been bowed for this season is going to be raised up again, because I'm faithful and you have great things to look forward to. So be blessed today as you think on these things. God bless you.